Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We're glad you could take the time to be here. Today's session focuses on the NC State Project Management Certificate Program. But more importantly, it's going to be a conversation about how project work is changing and what that means for professionals across roles and industries. Over the next hour, we're going to look at the current landscape of project-based work, the skills employers are increasingly looking for, and how the certificate program is designed to support professionals as expectations continue to rise. We'll take questions throughout the session. You can feel free to put your questions into the Q&A, and we'll answer them as best we can as we go through. To get started, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Denise Benson, and I'm from Blue Summit. I am a PMP, a CPAM, a risk management professional, and now CPMAI instructor. My role today is just to provide some context and explain why the program exists, how it's structured, and how it fits into the broader realities many professionals are facing in their work. And I just wanted to go ahead and give a chance for my colleagues here on the panel to go ahead and introduce themselves as well. Do you want to start with Chris?
Sure. I'm Chris Dixon. I'm also a PMP certified instructor, and I am a certified construction professional, which is PMI-CP. Great to be here with you today.
Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Shedrick Samuels, program coordinator here with the Office of Professional Development at NC State University. And we are the entity that will interface with you in your registrations and questions about our project management courses and certificate program.
Hello, I'm Leslie Brim, and I am the project assistant for project management with Shedrick. And I will answer any questions or get you information that you need and kind of be your go-between between Blue Summit and NC State. Thank you.
And let me go ahead and share my slides so we can start the discussion. So hopefully that is up. Okay. All right. So today we'll discuss how the world of work is changing and why project skills have become increasingly important. We're going to examine how organizations are using projects to manage change, deliver results, and respond to evolving demands. I don't think that, at least in my professional career, that I've noticed such a drastic amount of change. And I think part of it's driven by technology, but then also just the business environment globally is changing and adapting to all of those things and external factors, internal factors, and the technology going on. And so it makes project management even more important in that aspect. So we're also going to look at what our employers are expecting from professionals today and how those expectations are showing up across industries. And then finally, we're going to walk through the structure of the NC State Project Management Certificate Program and how it supports skill development and career progression. So before we get into the details of the program itself, it's important to take a step back and look at what's happening in the broader work environment. So across industries, organizations are relying more heavily on project-based work to deliver results. So according to the Project Management Institute and the World Economic Forum, this shift is expected to continue for the rest of the decade. And PMI is estimating that millions of new project-oriented roles are going to be needed globally, and employers are going to be consistently reporting difficulty in finding professionals with the right combination of technical, leadership, and decision-making skills. And I'll tell you, just from working with Project Management Institute as an authorized training partner, one of the things that they are really pushing is that there's just not enough training available in order to train all the people that need to be trained, because we're having the rest of the boomer generation sort of leaving the workforce. We have new people coming up. Even just changing the environment where organizations are just becoming more projectized across the board. There's just this dearth of actual certified trained professionals that are available to take on these roles as we move forward. So all this is happening, and at the same time, compensation data is showing that there's a clear gap between professionals that have formal project management training or credentials and those without. So in the US alone, certified project managers earn significantly more on average, reflecting how strongly organizations value these capabilities. And I think that that number kind of hovers anywhere between 25 to 35% more, right? So a 35% higher salary than a competitor, your colleague who doesn't have the certification. So this isn't about job titles either. It doesn't matter if you're in a job and you're called a project manager. It's just how work is being structured. Projects are being done all throughout the business and organization. And these skills and these roles are taking place no matter where you are within your organization. So that brings us to how work itself is changing on a day-to-day basis. So work today is more complex than it was even a few years ago. There's more change happening at the same time, more initiatives competing for attention, and fewer people and resources available to support all the work that's being done. Projects are no longer isolated efforts. They overlap, they move faster, and they require more coordination across teams, functions, and stakeholders. At the same time, expectations have increased. So leaders are expecting clear communication, better decision-making, and measurable outcomes, often with less margin for error. And I think that there's also this expectation that people are able to do more than they can, because I think there's sometimes like a misunderstanding, and especially we can talk about this a little bit later too, with the addition of AI, right? There's this expectation that they'll be more, each individual will be more productive, but without having the right training or understanding of how those systems and those tools work, it's not even going to save you time or make you more effective. But all of this is to say that this is why organizations are continuing to invest not only in credentials, but also in workforce development programs that focus on how the work is actually done and not just how an exam is passed. And I think that that's one of the clear differentiators that you'll find in this program. Understanding the work environment is going to be critical before we look at how specific roles or any programs that we have with this program. So as organizations deal with the change in the level of complexity, projects are becoming the primary way that work gets done. And as I already mentioned, like everything is being projectized. So whether we're talking about some technology rollout, a change initiative, a process improvement, or a new product or service, projects are now the mechanism organizations use to move strategy into action. So when we think about, a traditional project, usually we're thinking about, a project is is set to create a new service, product, or result, and it has a definite start time and a definite end time, right? That's the formal definition of a project. But the way that we use projects today, right, because it's not even just getting the first project into, creating that first unique service, product, or result, it's then how do you create the next iteration of that, right? So it's almost like a continuum, but each distinct projects. And then you have that happening across different organizations or different organizational sections that are having to work together when they do all this. So this is why project work is showing up across multiple roles. So not just in positions with the project manager in the title. Many professionals are trying to manage timelines, stakeholders, budgets, and risk as part of their day-to-day responsibilities. And research consistently shows that organizations that invest in project capabilities to deliver better outcomes and are more resilient during periods of change. So this growing reliance on projects explains why project management skills are no longer optional for many professionals. And as project work becomes more central, expectations around how work is led also have increased. So Technology, and particularly AI, is accelerating these expectations rather than reducing them. So automation and AI tools have increased the speed of work, expanded access to data, and raised expectations for decision quality and accountability. And as I mentioned before, right, there's this like expectation gap where, okay, so leaders are like, well, now you have ChatGPT, so we're going to get more out of you, right? Well, if you're not taught how to use that tool effectively, just like any other tool, right, you're not going to be able to create the increased productivity that is expected by having that product. I know for myself, like our CEO of our company, he is really into AI and uses all the different tools and can do a lot with them, which saves him a lot of time. But there's like this expectation that I can do that same level of work, and that's just not the case because I'm just not there yet. So that's how AI is really changing this workforce. AI can support planning and analysis, but it does not replace human responsibility for decision making, stakeholder alignment, or ethical judgment. And that's why we see this growing demand, not just for credentials, but for practical workforce development skills that focus on how to lead projects effectively in complex technology-enabled environments. So there's kind of two things that are, I guess, a couple of things that are also important when we're talking about AI. It's that these are just going to be common skills now, and especially for project managers. So you're going to see things that, like in a job requisition, it'll say, required skills, right? You know how to use MS Office or Microsoft Project or ClickUp. Well, you're going to start to see AI tools in there as well. So you really need to start learning out how not only to do project management, but then do project management using these tools to assist you. Even the new PMBOK 8, which is the project management body of knowledge, if you're not aware. So the Project Management Institute puts out this guide, and that has incorporated AI into that this year. AI is being incorporated into the new, all the new project management training. So this is just the way that future project management is going. As expectations rise, you risk falling behind and become less visible but more significant. So I don't think that AI is going to replace project managers, but it's actually going to be a tool that you can use to actually be more efficient, right? And one of the greatest examples is that as a project manager, we do have to do a lot of data analysis to understand, is our project on time? Is it on budget? But you can use AI to do those things. And that frees up more of your time to do the soft skill stuff, right? Communicating with your stakeholders, dealing with your teams, and working with your teams. So it is like a force multiplier in that aspect. And if you're interested in learning more about how AI is specifically impacting project management, next Thursday at noon as well, we have another webinar called AI Skills Gap, Why Project Managers Can't Sit This One Out. And if you have not registered for that, please go ahead and register for that, because that will be another great presentation. And we'll talk more in depth about AI specifically and how it's affecting project management. So as expectations increase, there is a risk that often gets unnoticed, because as roles evolve and responsibilities expand, the performance standards are also going to rise. And this happens often without any sort of formal changes to job titles or even any training that goes along with that. So many professionals continue to rely on their experience alone and assuming that it's going to carry them forward, even as the tools, processes, and expectations change around them. So over time, skills that were once effective can become outdated. And if they're not intentionally refreshed or expanded, you risk falling behind. Right? So that's why upskilling and or reskilling have become necessary rather than optional for many professionals. So organizations are responding to this risk by investing more heavily in project-based work and project capability. Across industries, organizations are doubling down on project as the primary way they deliver strategy, manage change, and improve performance. So the Project Management Institute's workforce research has shown that sustained demand for project professionals, even during periods of economic uncertainty, because projects are how organizations adapt. And the World Economic Forum has also identified project-oriented skills such as analytical thinking, leadership, adaptability as critical for future job growth. So this increasing demand is not limited to a single industry or a career stage, but it's going to span technology, healthcare, government, manufacturing, and professional services, and many other industries, right? Like, because this is across really all industries. The stability of project work is tied to its role in delivering outcomes, not to short-term market conditions. So as this demand increases, employers are becoming more specific about the skills they expect professionals to be able to bring to project work. And as organizations invest more heavily in project work, they're also becoming clearer about the skills they expect from their professionals. So employers are consistently highlighting analytical thinking, adaptability, communication, and the ability to influence without direct authority as critical capabilities. That is like a specific role for project managers, because many times project managers have project team members that don't necessarily directly report for them, right? And then they have to work with their stakeholders and senior leaders and people outside their organization. So influence without authority becomes very important as a skill for a project manager. What stands out in all of this data is that these are not narrow technical skills. They are judgment-based skills that show up when priorities conflict, timelines compress, and stakeholders disagree. So pressure and working under that pressure, right, is an important part of being a project manager. So this is also where we see salary differences emerge, because professionals who can demonstrate these capabilities, often supported by that formal training, their certifications, and/or credentials, are rewarded at higher levels because they reduce risk and improve outcomes. And I think that one of the things that I learned specifically, I got into project management and then later on became certified and started doing all of this structured training, was that even though I like my intuition was right and like what needs to be done, like I didn't have a formal process or even just like languages that I could use to describe this to the people I were working with. And so it made me less successful as a project manager. And I look back at projects that I ran in the past or earlier in my career, and sometimes it frustrates me because I'm like, oh my God, if I had just done it this way, right? It would have been so much better. And I think that that's like a common perception. So people who, you could be a good project manager and not ever have training, but I'm telling you, the training does make a difference. And just the way that you kind of can approach the business. And then when you have all these other stressors added on, because as a project manager, you're dealing with all these other personalities and people and timelines and priorities, and having a structured way to kind of approach all of these things does help you manage that stress and keep things under control. So that's why these skills become so important to employers, because they know, or at least gives them the expectation, right? Because they can see that you've had this formal training, certifications, or the credentials that come along with it, right? That chances are you are going to be like a less of a risk, because the expectation is that you have a better handle on how to do these things, right? So, and these expectations are going to apply across roles or industry, and not just to people with formal project management titles, right? So that leads to an important shift on how we're thinking about project management itself. So project management is no longer best understood as a single role. It's a career capability. The skills associated with project management are portable across roles, applicable across industries, and increasingly valuable as responsibility grows. And I have to say, because we probably teach at least a good, I don't know, several hundred, if not like 1,000 people in project management a year. And almost none of those people actually hold the title of project manager when we talk to them, right? They're a software engineer, or they are, an operations manager, or, whatever. There's all kinds of titles that go along with this, but they are managing projects, and these skills become important. And I think that that's just one thing, because I think that people tend to hold back because they don't think that they're in a project management position. But I think project management is just so much more pervasive than people kind of give it credit for, right? So, but with all of this said, right, since this is increasingly becoming a bigger responsibility across different portfolios and careers, many professionals are moving into this project heavy work without ever changing their job title, just because the work demands it. So from a career perspective, having this training, right, and this portability is going to matter. It's going to help create flexibility, resilience, and options as roles evolve and organizations change. So it also explains why workforce development programs that focus on teaching how to do the work are separate and distinct from credential exam preparation courses that are just teaching you how to pass the exam, right? So that's where, and we'll talk about this a little more, is with this program, the NC State Project Management Certificate Program, we have these skill development courses, right? So our project management fundamentals, our agile fundamentals courses, but we also have the credential exam preparation. So if you want to get a PMP as part of that, right? So this program has all of that. So understanding project management as a capability helps clarify why both certificates and credentials can play different but complementary roles. And then so from there, it's helpful to look at how demand for these roles is going to continue to grow across industries. So when we look at job growth data, we see that project roles continue to expand across industries and experience levels. So job trends research show that sustained demand for project-oriented roles through the end of the decade. So this is being driven a large part by digital transformation, but also infrastructure investment and organizational change. And I think like one of the things that comes along with this is that we see organizations now trying to streamline their workforce, especially as they bring in AI, but there's almost like a mismatch there because they're not doing it in a planned and thought out way. And so all of these new changes are not having the impact that they planned on having. And I think especially with AI, right, that transition is not happening as people expected, because I don't think we're seeing the job losses that we see in the United States right now are not necessarily because of AI. It is almost like natural downsizing, right? Because as people leave, they're just not filling the positions, and not because AI is allowing their people they keep to be more efficient. It's because they expect it to in the future, and it's like there's a gap right now. And so I think that the next year is going to prove very enlightening, like where especially in the US, like where we go with all this. Anyways, so it's important that when we talk about this growth, that it's not just limiting it to those traditional project positions, right? Because we're doing projects as part of operations. We're doing projects in IT, across different healthcare sectors, all across the government. I mean, the government is nothing, I think, in a large part today, nothing but just project managers, because the government contracts out so much work, right? Every one of those contracts is a project. There's project managers on the government side, the contractor side, right? But all of that. So, and then it also falls into professional services. So this breadth is going to reduce the risk of over specialization And project skills are going to increase mobility rather than narrowing your career options. And just for example, when I was talking about some of the projects I ran in the past, right, where I was a project manager, I came from the Department of Defense, right? But I ended up managing an IT project, but I'm not an IT professional, right? And so I had to learn enough about how the different job roles, the different functions in IT in order to manage that project. But my project management skills is what had me, were able to put me in that job. So you can really take these skills, right, and translate them across different industries. And that just makes you, if you're looking for a new or different job, right, then this opens up doors for you that may not have been open before, because if you were in some specific specialty, right, then you're not going to easily cross those over. But with project management, you can. And then even if you plan to stay with your current employer, right, it just makes you more attractive for promotions or lateral moves across the organization, because you have more value to them with someone who just has that specialized skill. So as I said, so this is going to create growth opportunity, and it also helps increase your level of competition, right? Because you're going to be more competitive in the job force or even in your organization with different roles as anyone else would be without these skills. So as more people start to transition to these project heavy roles, those skills are become signals that are going to be very important to employers. So the skills matter, but the signals do too. And when we talk about signals, we're referring to those certificates, those credentials, those things that prove that you have done the work and not just gotten the experience, right? So employers are making decisions with limited information. So this is especially true when it comes to hiring, promoting, or assigning critical projects. So having a certificate, such as the NC State Project Management Certificate, or credentials like the PMP, are going to serve as a signal that the skills have been developed intentionally and assessed against these defined standards, right? You have made it to some level of training and professionalization, right? So this is where it's important to distinguish between our workforce development courses and then the credential exam. So in this NC State Project Management Certificate Program, we have workforce development courses, and those are going to provide the foundation of the program. So like I said before, foundations of project management, foundations of agile project management, etc. So these focus on how to do the work effectively. Then there's also, as your elective, you can take like a PMP exam prep course and get your project management professional certification. But that exam prep course is focused specifically on how to pass that certification exam from the Project Management Institute. So both play a role, but they're serving different purposes. So it's important that we just understand that distinction and understand what the difference is between the certificate or the credential, so that as you're planning out your professional development path within this program, you can choose what's going to be the best for you. So given how competitive and project-driven work is becoming, it's worth still talking a little bit more about how these certifications matter. So employers are going to continue to value certification because it's going to provide that validated evidence of knowledge in alignment with those recognized standards. So certification helps create consistency. It gives employers a common reference point when evaluating capability across candidates or teams. And it also signals professional accountability. So earning and maintaining a certification requires commitment to ongoing development. So this is why a certification remains relevant even as the roles and the tools evolve. So that relevance shows up most clearly when we look at the career and the compensation outcomes. And like I said, there's more roles opening up for project managers and for people with project manager skills, and the compensation is higher because you have those demonstrated credentials, right? And then when we look at the earning potential specifically, the data is showing a clear relationship between certification and compensation. So the Project Management Institute does a salary research every year, And it's consistently showing that professionals with certifications earn more on average than those without, particularly in the United States. And like I said, the values range anywhere from 25% to 35% more, and that's just an annual salary. So it's, not that just because having a certification is going to guarantee you any kind of like immediate salary increase, but that value comes from how your skills are applied over time. So in many instances, professionals who get the certification can strengthen their negotiating position and their long-term career leverage. So this helps not only if you're trying to get a new job, right? Because now you have this certification that you can use as leverage to demand a higher salary, but it's also something that you can use in your current job to also demand, because sometimes there's a new position opening up, more responsibility, or even a lot of companies like do an annual assessment and then that discussion comes up. I think one thing, and I lived in Germany for a long time, and one thing I just noticed culturally is because like we don't talk about salary, right? Like we try not to talk about it, but they're totally different. That it's fine to just go up and ask someone how much they make, right? And that's just a social, like a society thing. But one of the differences too is that I saw like where they would just say, oh, I'm going to tell my boss that I need to make more money, right? And they were just very open about asking for raises and stuff. And I think that this is something that, can help with that having that mentality, especially in times like these where inflation and prices are going up. It's just a way for you to have more negotiating power when you're having those discussions with your current or potential future employers. So beyond compensation, certification can have a meaningful impact on your career flexibility. So professionals with recognized training and credentials tend to have greater mobility across roles, organizations, and industries. So certification also supports competitiveness. So as project work becomes more common, having a clear signal of capability helps individuals stand out when opportunities arise. So just as important, certification builds confidence, but it reinforces that skills are current, relevant, and aligned with professional standards. So together, mobility, competitiveness, and competence can create options which are going to matter in a changing work environment, similar to what we find ourselves in right now. So those options reflect a broader shift in how organizations define success in project roles. So expectations from project professionals are shifting from simply completing tasks to delivering measurable value. So organizations are looking for professionals who can align work to business outcomes, manage stakeholders effectively, and make informed decisions under pressure. So this shift places greater emphasis on judgment, communication, and leadership, not just technical execution. So meeting these expectations consistently requires more than experience alone. So it's going to require structured development that builds both capability and confidence. This shift is why many professionals seek formal programs that support how work is actually done, not just how knowledge is tested. And then from here, it makes sense to look at how a structured certificate program is designed to meet these expectations. So at this point, the question becomes how professionals actually build and maintain these capabilities. So relying solely on experience or informal learning often leads to gaps that only become visible under pressure. And a structured certificate program provides a deliberate path for delivering and developing project management capability rather than leaving growth to chance. And like I was saying before, from my own, personal work history, right? So like I was doing projects and I was managing them and I was doing like all of the right sort of things, but I didn't have like clear tools. I didn't have even specific tools to do things, right? I was trying to kind of wing it, I guess you could say, but I also didn't have that common language or a good structure to follow. And so I was really, I guess, in some ways like frustrated, because as I was like studying project management more, I'm like, oh my gosh, I've been doing this, but this is a better way to talk about what I was doing. This is a better way to do it. And these are better tools to use in doing that. So it really does make a difference when you have that structured training. And I don't I don't know how to say it even any better, because it is sorry, it is definitely a game changer. And this is why, you know, this particular program has been designed around that approach. So this program works because it combines the academic credibility with practical application. So we have this project management certificate that's issued by North Carolina State University, and it provides a clear standard with formal recognition of completion. And then Blue Summit is working with NC State Continuing and Lifelong Education to provide this, because Blue Summit is an authorized training partner of the Project Management Institute. We're all project management professionals. We're certified ourselves. And so bringing us together really created a very like thoughtful and intentional program that is designed to give a person all of the skills they need to actually be really effective project managers. And I think that it's some of the best classes I have seen. I mean, I guess I'm biased, but honestly, that I have taken. And I'll tell you, me and my colleagues in designing these courses, we just also thought about all the bad training we had received, or the inaccurate training, or even the unhelpful training, and tried to create programs that are going to be more effective for everyone. And our partners, so with this partnership, we specifically designed it to support working professionals and balancing the rigor with the relevance. And so this combination is really what differentiates the NC State Project Management Certificate Program from other programs like this. And for the program itself, the structure of the certificate program is designed to build capability and not just knowledge, right? So as I said before, we have the how-to and then the cert prep courses. So to earn this project management certificate, participants have to complete 5 courses in total. There are 4 required courses that focus on core project management fundamentals, agile approaches, leadership and communication, and negotiation and influencing. So that is the project management fundamentals, the agile project management fundamentals. There is a leadership, team building, and effective communication, and negotiating and influencing. So those are the 4 primary courses that you are required to take. And again, they focus on how to do the work effectively in real project environments. And then the instructor ensures that everyone who completes the certificate program has a consistent foundation regardless of background and industries. And earlier I talked about those skills that employers were looking for, specifically the analytical thinking, the structured processes, the leadership, the communication. So all of those things, those skills are covered within those 4 foundational required courses. And then in addition to that, all participants are allowed to select 1 elective course to complete their program, right? So the elective is where participants can choose a path that's going to best fit their experience and objectives. So some of the electives are going to focus on credential exam preparation. So these are the Project Management Institute certifications, either the Certified Associate in Project Management, the Project Management Professional, or the Agile Certified Practitioner. So this CAPM, right, that's for people with no project management experience, right? So if you're new to project management, that is a good certification to get. If you have more experience, then you might want to look at the Project Management Professional. And if you're specifically working in an Agile related environment, then the Agile Certified Practitioner is good as well. Those all have different requirements. The CAPM is like the one with the least barrier to entry, but there's also other electives that you could take if you choose not to get one of these professional credentials, right? So because you're still going to get NC State certificate. So you can choose these or one of those other electives. And we have different classes kind of running depending on interests. But like we have a class on business process analysis, which helps in looking at lean processes, right? How to improve business processes to make them more effective and more efficient. And then we also have a new class launching called Leading AI Projects that really focuses on specifically how to lead projects that are focused on AI initiatives. And that's just becoming more and more important, especially as it's estimated that 95% of these projects are failing currently. So again, like I said, the webinar next week is going to go more into that. So regardless of the elective chosen, all participants are going to earn the same NC State Project Management Certificate upon completion. The flexibility is going to allow the students to combine their skill development with credentialing in a way that supports your individual career path. So this program is designed for professionals at different points in their careers who are facing similar expectations. So it supports you whether you want to build a strong foundation in project-based work and understand how projects are being planned, executed, and led. But it also is going to help you if you are already managing projects as part of your role, even if project manager is not your formal title. And then for experienced project management professionals, right, the program provides a way to formalize your skills, stay current, and align experience with recognized standards. Like I said earlier, you know, the standards and the sort of the way that we address project management or look at how to do it or the tools we use, those are continuously changing. Like we just got a new project management body of knowledge in the PMBOK 8. And the classes that we're teaching as part of this program are incorporating that new training and that new thought process and the new, you know, kind of those changes in the program. So all of the courses are already updated to reflect those changes. So you're getting the most current training you can that's aligned with those recognized standards. And then so no matter where you are in your career, the common need is the ability to manage complexity, lead work effectively, and deliver results in a project-driven environment. And that's what these courses are designed to give you. So where do we go from here? So we've discussed how project work is shaping how organizations operate and how expectations for professionals continue to rise. We've also discussed how this certificate program is designed to build the skills required to meet those expectations in practical, applied ways. And then for professionals who want to remain effective and competitive, intentional skill development is going to be essential in today's workforce. And this program provides that structured path to develop these skills and earn a university-issued certificate that reflects that capability. So let me go to, so I have up here Leslie and Shedrick's email address. There's also the link to the program, the website, but you can also, the QR code takes you to the same link. I will also go ahead and post this into the chat. So you guys have that, but I just want to open it. One, does anybody have any questions about the program? Okay, what is the mix of self-paced work and instructor-led sessions? Is it different for the core courses versus the elective? So the core courses, so like you're talking about the foundational courses and stuff, they're 3-day courses. They tend to run Monday through Thursday, right? We do Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, right? 8:30 to 4:30. They are all instructor-led sessions. So, and they are mostly online, but I do believe that, I don't know if you guys are scheduling in-person ones at NC State. We have those. Okay. So, Yeah, so all of it is instructor led. They're only kind of self-paced work is we do give you some supplemental materials that you can go through on your own, and also that you can do as kind of like an added benefit, right? So I hope that answers your question. And do we have any more questions? Okay, can you explain the additional certifications and how that is different from the NC State course certification? So NC State offers, it's a certificate program. Cedric might be able to explain this better than I can from the university perspective, but that's a program. So that's going to, the certificate is issued from NC State, which basically this says that you have completed some basic training requirements, right, and passed those requirements, and to show that NC State is saying you are a project management professional. The Project Management Institute is a global certifying body for project management. So that's where considered a professional credential, right? And so you can take that as part of this program or not. And so like that's where that elective, either you can choose to get your CAPM or your PMP. Those are globally recognized professional credentials versus the university certificate. Did I answer that, Cedric, or is that good?
Yeah, I think that's primarily I think you hit the nail on the head. Primary difference between the NC State certificate and maybe a credential certification is just that, where the certificate that we offer at NC State is simply a list or a package, if you will, of courses that you can take that will help you hone in on skills that we can package together and say that, yes, the certificate that you've received from us says that you received this training and that you can use those skills now in your job versus a certification where there is a formal exam that takes place and that you have that credential and you have the alphabet after your name, so to speak.
Okay, we don't. So I covered a lot, but I didn't know. I just wanted to give like Chris, do you have like some insight from all of your years of being a project professional? And Chris didn't say this, but he's held some very high positions in big corporations, and has done this for a long time. So I think his perspective is valuable.
Yeah, I'm glad to share my perspective, and I apologize for the background noise. I'm actually at the Georgia Cyber Center today, and I'm sure there's probably a fair amount of project managers here. Most of them are agile. A lot of military people here, a lot of private industry. But here's my take on project management. If you look at it from a blocking and tackling standpoint, project management's a lot like business management. And when I started my career a few years ago, we had to, I mean, literally, we were put through a 2-year course of project management. So every quarter, we had a week of training, and it was that important. And I still believe it's that important. My employees, I have a company, my employees get project management training because it just teaches you how to think. And as Denise said several times, it's a standard language. There's no more scary feeling than being assigned to a project and you're in this big conference room with project managers and they start spouting off critical path and crashing the schedule. And you don't know what any of this stuff means. Now, granted, you can learn quickly, but wouldn't it be better if you went in with that standard lingo and you were ready to talk to these people? And by the way, most people use critical path wrong anyway. So, I think that's number one. Number two, you belong, if you get the NC State certificate in project management, that means that we are convinced that you are fully capable of being a fully functioning project manager. You know the lingo, you know all the different core modules, and they could parachute you into any project from software to building a building, and you're going to be able to figure which end is up. And that's really important. But if you decide you want to go the next step and you want to sit for the exam, and it's a 4-hour exam, it's a big deal, and you want to get the PMP moniker or you want to get CAPM or Agile after your title, that introduces you to a very small group of professionals, and you get a network if you join PMI. And if you're out there on a project you know nothing about, all you got to do is connect with them, and a whole bunch of people will jump in there to help you. So, you become a part of that fraternity, not just with NC State, with being an alum of the program, but the bigger picture with the certification. And again, I highly recommend it. I've had a lot of big projects. I've held a lot of big titles. But at the end of the day, even running my business, I'm a project manager. Today I've got to do this and this and this and this. I have a defined scope. I've got a start date, a finish date, and I've got a budget. That's a project. I hope that helps.
I just wanted to also say that I mentioned several times that we also have a webinar next week to talk about the AI skills gap, and we'll get more into what the leading AI projects course is that we're going to be adding to this program. But I put the registration link into the chat if anybody's interested in registering for that class too. I think it'll be really enlightening to just talk about how AI has been changing the project management world. So I really highly recommend it. It will also be me giving the presentation. It looks like so. If we any other questions that I can answer for anybody, or okay, is there a recommended order that's best for completing the 4 foundational courses? I would say I would do like the foundations of project management first, then the foundations of agile project management, and then I think the leadership and the negotiating one, like those can be swapped. Obviously, the way that we've designed the classes, they don't require that you follow a specific order just because I mean, there's only so many offerings this semester. And so sometimes, depending on how your schedule works out, we know that that's not realistic. And if that's the case, we're going to work with you as best we can, even on an individual level, to make sure that you understand what we're talking about, no matter where you start in the program. So I would say, whatever you need to do to get started. So if you need to start even with leadership or whatever, don't let that hold you back from at least just taking that first step, right? And I also say, that we want you to take all 5 classes and get the certificate, but if you're just interested in certain parts, you can just, take the courses that you're most interested in. That's good too. You also might, be a good place to start and then even see if those, if you want to go further. But yeah.
Denise,
So,
let me jump in because I forgot something really important. The foundations of project management and the foundations of agile, those are really, really, really hands-on classes. Some of you are visual learners. You read it, you get it. Some of you are auditory, but some of you are like me and you got to do it. And these courses are designed with case studies and stuff like that. So we put you in groups when you're together. If we're virtual online, you would be assigned to a breakout room, and you would be a part of a group, and we approach that just like your project team. So you should be, when you finish the 2 foundations classes and the leadership and negotiating, you should be real comfortable doing all those things. And if you decide you want to go and learn how to take the exam, then you take the certification classes. And we have some other electives, advanced project management, or um, um, a construction, a more capital intensive course. So you got lots of opportunities, but you're going to get a lot of hands-on training.
any more questions that we can answer? All right. I'll just do some. Oh wait, will more courses be added in the future? Shedrick, Leslie, can one of you take that one?
Yes, we're adding all the time. We've got the business process analysis class is going to be coming on to the schedule here next few days. And then, of course, we've been talking about the the Leading AI Projects class. We're going to try to have that online here and have that available to register for here in the next few weeks. We put the last little bit of tweaks on that, and we're hoping to have that on our schedule, maybe Chris, maybe late April, sometime in May, but certainly before we get to the summer um, months. One thing I do want to mention is as far as the foundational courses, we do try to offer those. Being that we're non-credit, we don't really follow a semester timeline, but anyway, we kind of do. But we do try to offer those at least twice, in a specific quote unquote time period. So we are adding all the time.
And as far as the program too, we're also very responsive to demand. So if you're interested, please don't hesitate to reach out to Leslie and Cedric, and because they're the ones that are kind of like the masters of the program. So if they know that there's more interest or we see more people signing up, we can always add more courses to make that just more available to you guys. So please talk to them because they are the designers and masters of the program.
Yeah, and if your companies, let's say you're trying to get your company to sponsor you to take a class or whatever, Denise and I are available. Just ping us and maybe we can help you, coach you on that. But Shedrick and Leslie also could speak to your company if you have more people, because it's like Denise said, we could run a lot more classes. We have a lot of horsepower with Blue Summit. We just need more people in each class to justify running the class. So if your company's interested in something like that, talk to Leslie and Shedrick, and maybe we can put something together on a bigger picture for your company.
Okay. We have no other open questions. We just only have a couple of minutes left. I just want to say this is a really good program, and I just know from my own personal experience what difference having structured formal project management training did for me, and I highly recommend it. So please, take some time to look into the program. And like I said, if you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to Shedrick and Leslie. And we will also they can put you in contact with us if it's necessary. But please, this is really not just about your organization, but this is an investment in yourself, and I highly recommend it. Chris, Cedric, Leslie, do you guys have any last minute things you want to add?
No, I think you pretty much covered it. Yeah, just any questions, reach out to us and we'll try to guide you through as best we can.
Okay. And again, thank you all for taking the time to attend today. Like I said, I put the link to register for next week's webinar into the chat as well. You have the link to the website at NC State. And please, again, don't hesitate to reach out. I appreciate you for taking the time to be with us today, and enjoy the rest of your day.